I thought you just pressed the LUMbA button and the song's done.
Well, there are a lot of buttons, alright? Hi, it's me, Neat. I'm that guy who made Core, and I'm currently working on a soundtrack for LUMbA Hangover, a sequel to this hellish, nightmare-inducing series. Although well received, the 2 tracks I worked on for the first game, and the concept of simply making goofy headbangable bleeps and blobs on top of aim and breaks is just not enticing, especially when I'm looking to make over 12 tracks, numbers not final, and convey a wide array of emotions. Trying to make our songs sound like Redux would have been too limiting. Plus, Team LUMbA still wants that aim and break sound, and aim and break is, well, aim and break. So, to avoid being monotonous, some changes needed to be introduced. The game will focus on an entirely different cast of characters anyway, so a new vibe is in order to keep things fresh. I was heavily inspired by some Sewerslvt hits and this album by Venetian Snare, which I can't pronounce the name of. And I was looking to combine the two with some of my tastes. In Hangover, I'm giving myself more room for melodic parts. You would be able to tell if you listen to the soundtrack, it's much more like musical, focused, I don't know dude. Team LUMbA has trusted me to run havoc in my creations, so I know that composing for this game allows me to take every single risk I want to take on every single track, putting me on a grand moral ground of these aren't mistakes, they are inventions. Please ignore my self-slander, and here are some song parts or inspirations that I can recall. Plugins. Honestly, there's nothing too specialized here, so it'll feel more like a general VST recommendation. Aside from my DAW and GTR, which is simply a guitar amp emulator, everything I use to make the soundtrack are all free, either that or they came in bone stock with Ableton. The wonders of technology. Supermassive. In my opinion, it's the best free reverb if you're looking for something a bit more special than whatever came with your DAW. Like the name suggests, it's bloody massive. OTT. A famous multi-band compressor. Hard to find a good example since I almost never crank it too hard, but the way I use it is to prevent something from being covered by other elements, since OTT can help shape the high ends to cut through the mix, especially break beats. If you can see, memory break file often cover the entire audio spectrum. When I'm trying to use it with other parts, they are not friendly with each other. And with stuff like that, I almost always pull them down in some ways so they won't kill other instruments. Pedalz and CamelCrusher. Aside from fun names, they are also fun in their usage. I don't know what the buttons do. I only know that they distort shit and decimate anything they're on. So I usually blindly click on stuff until I get the desired effect. Just like high ping Tekken, mashing random buttons also works for sound design.
With a pickup line, you literally just say, babe, when I come to my room and see my Tekken prowess.
Tekken prowess.
The concept of the quote-unquote LUMbA button is an inside joke. These monsters, however, can make anything sound like LUMbA. In layman's term, LUMbA sounds like shit. Deelay. You want to sound weird? Here's to give you weird. Deelay is one of my favorite delay plugins to date. Plus it has a random option. I guess you're slowly seeing a pattern in my production now, but yeah. And FO strings and SINE Player. You know how obsessed I am with them strings, alright? It sounds so good, I almost cannot believe both of them are free. While SINE Player is its own plugin, NFO Strings isn't. Instead, it's a sample library that can be used by a sample player. A sample player could be Kontakt or Decent Sampler, for instance. So, a bonus free plugin would be Decent Sampler, since Kontakt isn't free. Decent Sampler is an easy to use sample player that a lot of people use as a base to sample stuff. If YouTubers or your favorite music influencers would like to make a sample pack, most of them would look at Decent Sampler. Thus you can find a lot of samples to put into Decent Sampler from Pianobook. This is, frankly, over 1,000 free instruments at your fingertips. There's also something similar to Decent Sampler for more retro sound fonts. Sforzando is a free Decent sound font player, and you can find a lot of sound fonts from musical artifacts. Keep in mind this is in a legal gray area, but I haven't yet seen the Metal Gear Rising's composer get into trouble for using Windows default sound font in his works at Toontown. The two main tricks I see with breaks are almost always number 1, layering a bunch of them. This might create some interesting textures, but there's also number 2, seizure. Still, I got bored of them and tried other stuff. These tricks might only sound good to me, but I'll share them anyway and you be the judge. Firstly, I like to have the usual percussion like kicks, snares or claps, pronouncing similar downbeats just like on the break and sidechain the break to it. Not only does this make it hit harder, it also helps keep the coherency when I'm cutting up the break. Now breaks also usually come with high frequencies, like say cymbals or hats, and their fast tempo means that if you cut the low end of a break out, you can get something similar to a shaker. This is just more fun to look up shaker samples. Plus it's dirtier, and here at Team LUMbA, we like it dirty. 4/4 has been with humanity for a very long time. Some might say this poppy trashy time signature to the music world is comparable to historic stone tools. I know non-4/4 songs exist. My point is that people should do it more often in D&B and breakcore. I'm sure there are tons of talented people who can pull off some cool wacky time like 4 Pi or something. But if you're looking to start simple, I'm no genius. You'll be surprised at how ludicrously easy it is to work in 3/4 and 7/4 in addition to our beloved 4/4. Look, if I can do it, then you can do it. 5/4 is also one that sounds workable, but I haven't made it work for me yet. Still, I highly recommend that you give it a shot. One last thing for some nerdier music chaps. Even though the note length of 4 and 8 can give a time signature different accents, I do still recommend sticking with a single number for the entire digital project if you're doing things on a DAW with lots of stretched samples and MIDI notes. You can transfer things easier with less chance of your drums sounding like the Lego building sound effects. Since I'm not Mark Manson, I've exhausted my list of mildly enlightening things to say. So now I'll run through some songs that have interesting developments or just comments I thought would be cool to throw out there. I think Ableton has a slight advantage for treating samples with its toolkit of different warping options. If you were to stretch or pitch automate a sound and cycle between different modes, they would all sound different. This adds an extra layer of craftiness that you can unleash upon your 175 BPM M and break equal 3 loop example, which can be heard at the end of Verticore. There are no intellectual discussions for this one. I just wanted to tell you that the muffled voice sample you can hear throughout the song is hilarious if you know the origin. Of course, I can't give you any clues to avoid a potential legal dispute. What I can tell you is that there's a sample of Loaf saying anal neatly placed in there somewhere. I won't tell you which one it is so as to not ruin your lovely listening experience. Or have I already ruined it? I don't know. There are 2 hangover alerts, one for the menu and one for the stage, and they both sound completely different with only a similar melody. So why don't just name them differently? Well, that's because both of them were originally intended to be the same song on the album, and separated in game. But alas, I couldn't make it work. It felt forced since the textures were too contradicting. It was a neat idea though. A cool trivia is that this is where we landed on this leitmotif for the first chapter. Wicked Morality is, I'd say, the most emotionally driven song so far. Proved by some gibberish I actually played organically and didn't quantize. I tried some sounds and effects, but the song just didn't feel right early on for some reason. Irony is, I landed on a conclusion that it didn't sound right because the notes were too right. So I ignored all the music theories I've learned for a bit and boom. The song was miraculously finished within 1 day, along with 10 bottles of energy drink. It's one of those times where it's better to go ear first and theory second for certain songs. The only caveat is to be very honest with yourself. take a lot of breaks from listening and listen to tons of music to build that sound palette inside your head. This approach won't always work, of course, but I'm saying that it's definitely okay to try every once in a while. There are tons of moving pieces in modern music. It's okay to ignore some in order to min-max others. Vice versa also works. Just look at all NES bangers back when they had limited sound options. I was completely oblivious to this while making the song. Without spoiling you, I can only say that this song in-game will involve a brain or mind of some sort. So I'm digging how Breaking Sense sounds like it has breakbeats in the middle, with all other elements enveloping it on the side. I've always imagined music as dancing chefs inside my head, probably due to my exposure to Daft Punk's Alive 2007 concert visuals as a kid. This one, I just imagine a spiky ball in the middle with electrons floating around it, break shops in the center along with several distorted melodies that doesn't sound right, a pair of uncontrollable anomalies in the center of everything, while surrounding elements are engulfing it with reverb. Kinda like how our brain generates crazy thoughts, all the while contained inside the cerebrospinal fluid. Holy fuck, I sound so smart. That's not the only reason this song's special though. As far as things are being developed, this is the latest song I've worked on at the time of writing the script. And Vertigor is the opposite, being the first song to figure this LUMbA thing out. I remembered when I first finished Vertigor, I thought, wow, this is the face song of the game. Everything else will just be fillers now. Guess what? I've continued to think the same thing along with almost every other song I made. I thought that this flame of inspiration would dwindle over time as I slowly get tired of working with the same material repeatedly. Reality is the opposite. I figured out that it's impossible to know what a word would sound like after just several reference tracks or a conversation or even one produced song. Committing to doing many tracks for a singular project will reward you with new things to constantly figure out. The more songs you make, the closer you get to what's tied and true for that game and the world is built in. And it will be interesting for you guys to hear this development when the OST comes out. That there is a weird emotional growth within a handful of MP3 files. All of this in mind, I hereby declare all songs that I've finished for this project so far to be utter trash. But don't worry, because I know that the next one will be a banger. Thanks for watching the video. Sorry if I was annoying or something, but yeah. This is the usual e-baking section where I'm telling you to go subscribe to my channel and check out my other stuff. Yeah. Bye.